Hey guys, welcome back to more homeowner association stories. In this video, a bunch of HOA cops blocked my driveway with concrete barriers, effectively banning me from entering my own property. Let's dive right into the video to find out what happened. And the title story starts like this. So writing this here as a warning for anyone in a neighborhood that has an HOA nearby. Just because you are not part of one does not mean that an HOA will care enough to not do something because they think you actually are part of the HOA. So I live about 2 blocks away from where the HOA's boundary begins. I actually knew that when I moved into my home a few years ago and did not think much of it, if I'm being honest. I was informed that the HOA had a right to ask me if I wanted to join, and I was under no obligation to do so, which gave me peace of mind. And then with all of the stress of moving in and getting settled and making sure I was able to get to my job on time for my new home, the HOA ended up drifting to the back of my mind and I kind of forgot about them. I think I was living in my home for about 2 years when I started to get letters from the HOA asking if I wanted to join up. They were starting to expand and providing a little map to show that they were trying to extend their reach to an additional 5 blocks throughout the neighborhood. Honestly, I had no reason to join up and just politely declined sending back their notice and indicating to them not to contact me again. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. About a week after the letters came, there was a knock at my door. An older woman holding a clipboard greeted me and asked if I had a few minutes to speak. I'm gonna call her Gloria. I'm paraphrasing a lot of what the conversation was. This was years ago, but I wanted you to get the gist of it so you know what might have sparked the next escalation. Gloria: I'm one of the board members of the neighborhood HOA, and I wanted to discuss the letter that you wrote to us. And by the way, Ripestories, before we continue, I wanted to ask you one thing that I was very curious about. Do you enjoy my Karen voice that I do like this? Or would you prefer if I read Karen just like a normal human being? To be honest, it's kind of fun to make the Karen voice, but of course it's also more exhausting. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Either way, I responded, yeah, so I've lived here for 2 years and I'd been told that if the HOA ever wanted to expand, I could say no since, well, this property is not part of it. Gloria: I see. Could I ask why you don't want to join up? Just out of curiosity, you know. Me: well, this is my first home and I'm still working off my student loans, so there's not much money I've left that would cover the dues for an HOA. Gloria: oh, we could work with you on that. You wouldn't have to worry about that. Me: but I would still have to pay you money that I really don't have, and that's all I'm really comfortable saying about this. Gloria: okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Is there anything that we could do to change your mind about the HOA's expansion? Me: well, at this time, no. I made it clear that I don't want any more letters, so I would like to leave it at that. Gloria left and I thought that was the end of it, and then I got another letter. This one was a bit different from the expansion letter and was more of a formal request for me to provide the HOA with 2 years worth of dues. I thought it was a mistake and did not even write back. Then I got another letter requesting the same amount of money to pay off my dues to the HOA or they would take action against me. I wrote back this time explaining that my house was never part of this HOA and that they couldn't just ask me for money because I lived nearby. Well, about a week later, I found a note on my door, once again from the HOA board. They claimed it was a final warning notice and that if I didn't pay my delinquent dues by the end of the month, there would be actions against me. I realized that they were targeting me specifically now, but I didn't think that they would actually do anything. They had no jurisdiction over me and there wasn't a real threat in the letter, so I didn't think I had anything to worry about. The end of the month came and went. While I was getting ready for work one morning, I heard a loud noise coming from my driveway. I looked outside my window and saw a large construction truck and 2 men in hard hats unloading concrete barriers that blocked my driveway. There was also another car outside, but it wasn't one I recognized from the neighborhood. I was concerned, thinking that maybe there was some sort of construction going on with the street. It was close to 7 AM, so there had to be a legitimate reason for them to be doing something like that, at least I figured so I headed outside to confront them. Again, this might not have been the exact conversation, but you get the idea. Me: excuse me? What's going on here? Worker number 1: you own this place? Me: yeah, yes I do. Worker number 1: might want to talk to that cop over there. The cop he gestured to was someone just standing alongside the other car parked on the street. It did not look like a police cruiser, and the person who turned to me to look was definitely not a cop. It was Gloria. Me, what do you think you're doing? Gloria, you were properly warned about not paying your dues to the HOA, so I'm invoking my right as the HOA's chief officer of police to prevent you from leaving your property until the debt is paid. Me, you cannot do this. I'm not even a part of the HOA. Gloria, but because of our expansion project, you technically are. Now we can take a check for your overdue debt if you want to head back into your home to get this settled. I headed back into the house before I could even start cursing her out and called the police. I told them that Gloria was claiming to be a police officer for the HOA and that she hired people to put barriers in front of my driveway. While I waited for the actual police to show up, I called up my job to let them know that I probably was not gonna be there that day. My boss was understanding, even though I did not really explain everything that was going on. When the cops arrived, one of the officers began speaking to Gloria while I headed out the door to speak to the other. He confirmed with me that I was the one who called the police and took my statement on what was going on. After I explained everything, he seemed just as weirded out about the situation as I was. The other officer came up to me and her partner with a pinched look on her face. Female cop, this lady is claiming to be an officer. Male cop, are you serious? Female cop, and she is not backing down about it. She claims that the HOA gave her the authority to police the neighborhood and she's just doing her job. I was concerned that she talked about being the chief of police, which meant there were probably other officers that worked under her that would try to pull something like this again. I told the officers my fear and they agreed that she and the other members of the HOA police would need to be taken in and questioned. The first thing the police did was talk to the construction workers, letting them know that they needed to move the barriers. Gloria was not happy about that and started yelling at the cops, claiming that they didn't have jurisdiction for HOA business and that she was the authority there. The cops told her that she needed to come with them, but as soon as they opened up the door for her to get in their car, she tried to run towards me. She screamed about how I was not special and needed to pay what I was owed. The female officer ended up tackling her to the ground when it looked like she was going to straight up punch me in my own front yard. The male officer asked if I wanted to press charges and I told him yes. Thus began nearly a year of trying to get this business settled. I got a lawyer and they built a case after Gloria pleaded not guilty to trespassing and impersonating an officer. I provided them with the notes I had gotten from the HOA regarding their expansion and the request for me to pay 2 years worth of dues. Because of my expression of fear about other members of the HOA police coming after me if Gloria was sent away, the police did an investigation regarding the other officers that could be involved. It turns out I was not the only person that Gloria and 3 other members of the HOA board had done this too. When the expansion was announced, the officers targeted several members of the surrounding neighborhood to try and extort them for money that would be used to complete the expansion. A few neighbors had either paid the dues to keep the HOA from harassing them or moved away before the HOA could do something drastic like what they did in my case. Gloria and 3 other members of the HOA board were tried for trespassing, extortion, bribery, impersonating a police officer and harassment and were found guilty on all counts. They had to pay a hefty fine along with paying back the money that they got from some of the neighbors, and they are currently finishing serving the final year of a 5-year sentence for their crimes. It's still crazy to me that there are people out there that are like Gloria. I never would have guessed that the older woman who had shown up at my door could even think about doing what she did and have no remorse for it. I'll never forget how she acted during the final court date when she and the other HOA board members were sentenced. She did not even look upset at the ruling. It was as if someone had told her about the weather and she did not really care. So yeah, just saying, watch out for some of those HOAs. You never really know what some of the board members are capable of. And yeah guys, amen. Before you buy a house in an HOA neighborhood, be very careful and absolutely read everything you can before you sign that contract. Either way, the next one is an incredibly outrageous HOA story from the subreddit r/am-I-the-a-hole that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "Am I the jerk for getting a full audit of my HOA when they tried to enforce an unwritten rule about my car?" So when I bought the house, I knew there was an HOA, but the fees seemed reasonable for what we got, and the rules did not seem too restrictive. Said nobody ever. For context, I drive a 1989 Toyota Corolla. It is old, but it is my baby. I bought it from my grandfather when he couldn't drive anymore, and I've maintained it meticulously over the years. The paint job is still good, no rust whatsoever, and I keep it washed and waxed regularly. It runs perfectly. I'm a bit of a car guy and do most of the maintenance myself. It's not a fancy car by any means, but it's reliable, paid off, and has sentimental value. The trouble started about 6 months ago when I got a letter from the HOA saying my car was in violation of community standards. Well, according to them, cars parked in driveways needed to be current models, no more than 10 years old. I was confused because I had read through all the HOA documents when I bought the house, and there was nothing about car age restrictions. I called the HOA office that afternoon. "Hey, I'm calling about a notice I received today about my car." "Yes, what is your address?" asked the woman on the phone in a bored tone. I gave her my address. "Oh yes, you have the older model Toyota in your driveway. That is in violation of our community standards." I further said, "I've looked through all of my HOA documents and I don't see anything about car age restrictions. Could you tell me where that rule is written?" There was a pause. "It is in the updated bylaws." When were they updated? I've never received any updated bylaws. "They were approved at the HOA board meeting 3 months ago. All homeowners should have received a copy." Well, I didn't. Could you email me a copy right now? I will have to check with the board president. In the meantime, you have 14 days to remove the vehicle or face a $100 fine, followed by an additional $25 per day. It remains in the driveway. I was getting frustrated. But my car is in perfect condition. It is not an eyesore. The rule is not about condition, it is about age. The board feels older vehicles bring down property values. I hung up and immediately went through all my HOA paperwork again, nothing about car age. I even checked my emails to see if I had missed any update. Nothing there either. The next day I went to my neighbor across the street who has lived here longer than me. "Hey, did you get any updated HOA bylaws recently? Something about car age restrictions?" He looked confused and said, "No, nothing like that. What's going on?" I explained the situation. "That's weird," he said. "The guy 2 doors down has an old Mustang he's been restoring for years and they've never said anything to him." I checked and sure enough there was a 1967 Mustang sitting in a driveway 2 houses down. It was in good condition but definitely older than my car. I decided to go to the next HOA meeting, which was thankfully only a week away. In the meantime, I sent an email requesting the specific bylaw that restricted car age. 3 days later, I got a response. "Please see Section 8, Paragraph C of the Community Standards document." I pulled out my copy and looked at Section 8, Paragraph C. It read, "Vehicles parked in driveways must be in good working order with no visible damage, rust or disrepair." Nothing about age. I replied to the email, attaching a photo of my Section 8, Paragraph C, which clearly did not match what they were claiming, but there was no response. At the HOA meeting, I waited patiently through discussions about the pool filter system and upcoming landscaping projects. When they opened the floor for homeowner concerns, I raised my hand. I recently received a notice that my car is in violation because it's older than 10 years, but I cannot find this rule anywhere in the bylaws that I have. The HOA president, a middle-aged man with a permanent frown, cleared his throat. "The HOA board voted on that amendment 3 months ago. It's in the updated bylaws." "I never received updated bylaws," I said, and neither did my neighbors. Also, there's a 1967 Mustang 2 doors down from me that has not received any notices. And by the way, Ripestories, if I would be an HOA president, I would also not send a notice to a 1967 Mustang, because I mean, who would? Anyway, the president's face reddened slightly. "That car is a classic. Yours is just old." So the rule is not actually about age, but about would you personally consider a car a classic? A few other homeowners were now paying attention, nodding along with my point. "Your car devalues the neighborhood," he said flatly. "My car is in perfect condition," I replied. "The bylaws I have only say that cars need to be in good working order without visible damage or rust. Mine meets those standards." "The board has the authority to update the bylaws as needed," he countered. But don't those updates need to be properly communicated to all homeowners and consistently enforced? The meeting went back and forth like this for a while, with the president becoming increasingly defensive. A few other homeowners chimed in, some supporting me, others clearly friendly with the board and backing them up. In the end, the president said, "The notice stands. You have 11 days left to comply." The next day, I received another letter, this one with a $150 fine, for so-called argumentative and disruptive behavior at the HOA meeting. Now I was really angry. I decided it was time to talk to a lawyer. My cousin works at a firm that handles real estate issues, and she put me in touch with a colleague who specializes in HOA disputes. The lawyer was blunt and said, "This sounds like selective enforcement, which is illegal. Also, if they cannot produce the updated bylaws that were properly distributed to all homeowners, they cannot enforce this rule." He suggested that I send a formal letter demanding they produce evidence of the rule change and proper notification, as well as an explanation for why older vehicles were not being cited. He also advised I document my car's condition with photos and get statements from neighbors about its appearance. I did all of this, taking detailed photos showing my car's excellent condition. I got 5 neighbors to sign statements saying my car was well maintained and not an eyesore. I even took photos of the Mustang and 2 other older vehicles I found in the neighborhood that had not been cited. I sent the formal letter via certified mail demanding they rescind the violation notice and the meeting disruption fine within 10 days or provide the documentation requested. Their response came 9 days later, a new violation notice now citing unauthorized vehicle maintenance and driveway because I had been seen checking my oil, and another $100 fine, and that was it. I told my lawyer to file a lawsuit against the HOA. The lawsuit claimed selective enforcement, failure to follow proper procedures for bylaw amendments, harassment, and of course, abuse of power. We requested all HOA records for the past 5 years, including board meeting minutes, financial statements, and all violation notices issued. The HOA's lawyer contacted mine within days, suddenly sounding conciliatory. They offered to drop all fines and the car violation thing if I dropped the lawsuit. "They are scared," my lawyer said. "Let's not back down yet." He suggested we counter by demanding they not only drop the fines, but also pay my legal fees, and agree to a full audit of HOA operations by an independent third party. Their response was telling: immediate refusal of the audit. This made my lawyer even more suspicious. "They are hiding something," he said. "Let's push forward." The case went before a judge for a preliminary hearing. The HOA's lawyer argued it was a simple misunderstanding that they were willing to resolve by dropping all the fines. My lawyer presented evidence of selective enforcement showing photos of older other vehicles that received no violations and the absence of proper procedure in amending the bylaws. He also highlighted the suspicious response to our audit request. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, asked the HOA's lawyer directly, "Can you produce evidence that this rule about car age was properly adopted and communicated to homeowners?" Their lawyer hesitated. "We believe the board has broad discretion to interpret the existing rules about vehicle appearance." "That was not my question," the judge replied. "Do you have evidence that this specific rule exists and was properly adopted?" "We would need to consult the records." The judge looked unimpressed. "I'm ordering the HOA to produce all board meeting minutes for the past year, all bylaw amendments, and records of how those amendments were communicated to homeowners. I'm also ordering a list of all vehicle-related violations issued in the past 2 years." 2 weeks later, we had our answer. There was no record of any formal bylaw amendment about car age. The board had simply decided to interpret the good condition clause more strictly, but only for certain residents. More concerning though, the financial records showed the HOA had been imposing excessive fines and then using that money for purposes not disclosed to homeowners. The board president and treasurer had been giving themselves stipends for their service, which was not allowed under the HOA charter. When we presented this evidence at the next hearing, the judge was furious. She ordered a full forensic audit of the HOA's books, suspended the current board from making any financial decisions, and appointed a temporary receiver to manage HOA affairs until the audit was complete. The audit revealed years of financial mismanagement. The board had been selectively enforcing rules against homeowners they did not like while ignoring violations by friends and family. They had been using fines to fund personal expenses disguised as board education and community research. The judge ultimately ordered the entire board to resign, mandated a new election with an independent observer, and required the former board members to repay misappropriated funds and ordered them to pay all my legal fees. In the aftermath, I was approached by several neighbors who asked me to run for the new board. I initially declined, but after thinking about it, I actually decided to step up. I am now the treasurer of our HOA, working with a new board to create transparent processes and fair enforcement of reasonable rules. And yes, my 1989 Toyota is still proudly parked in my driveway, now specifically protected by our new clearly written bylaws that focus on vehicle condition rather than age. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for taking my HOA to court and causing a complete overhaul of the organization over what started as a dispute about my car? And yeah guys, let me know in the comments what you think here. Is OP the a-hole or not? I think he is an absolute legend for doing what he did, and I wish there were more people like OP in the world. Either way, we got a comment here from Reddit that said, not the a-hole, as someone who has been on an HOA board, what they were doing was completely illegal. HOAs have specific legal procedures they must follow, and they were ignoring all of them. You did your community a huge service. Comment number 2, everyone sucks here. Did you really need to go nuclear over a car? Yes, the HOA was wrong and clearly corrupt, but, and guys, by the way, as you know, usually when people say but, a load of horse poop comes afterwards. Let's see. So, but you could have just parked in your car or on the street temporarily while negotiating a more reasonable solution. Instead, you spent months in legal battles, cost everyone in your neighborhood money, HOA legal fees come from dues, you know, and creating lasting tension in the community. Sure, you exposed corruption, but your motivations were not altruistic, you just wanted to keep your old car in your driveway. Sometimes being right is not worth the collateral damage. And yeah guys, I would say if the collateral damage means an HOA getting destroyed or at least changed, then the collateral damage is worth it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/I don't work here lady. It is titled, Hubby fired me from a job I don't work at. So my husband is a manager at a local big-name grocery. We were down to one car at a time as the other clunker died and had not yet been replaced. I was waiting in front of the store for my husband's shift to end when a crazy lady demanded I check her out. I'd barely gotten out a "sorry I don't" when she stormed off to a manager to complain. I overheard her complaining to hubby, "That lazy employee," pointing to me, "refused to help me and she should be fired." Hubby walks over to me with a big grin on his face. That crazy lady couldn't see, winked at me and fired me on the spot. He said very loudly, "You will never work here again." I played along, covered my face with my hands and started fake sobbing, saying, "My babies, how will I feed my babies?" I would like to think crazy lady felt horrible, but I peeked through my fingers as I ran to the back only to see her smug face. Later in the car, hubby said it was all he could do to not crack up.